What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to YGOPD, your Yu-Gi-Oh! Professional Development, and today I have something very interesting for you today. I decided instead of a deck profile, a lot of people, both who I know personally as well as through the channel, have been expressing interest on more of a guide for the Melodious engine, less on pure and how do I use it, what's the cost, how does it look, what are the combos like, and I figured I would try to do something like that. Should be pretty short and sweet. There's only a couple of main lines for the combos that vary depending on your route that I'll showcase both. But I'll first talk about the engine. What I have on screen is pretty much everything that I think you need for the engine, at least from my experience, what I've been using. This is what I need. The only cards that are, I would say, optional are down here in the side deck section that I will get to in a minute. But for the main deck, 3 Atinado, this is the branded fusion. This is the starter that gets everything going. 3 Refrain, this is something that I would recommend playing 3 of. Again, another 1-card starter that is a full combo that does require your normal summon. This does not. The lines are slightly different between the two, but both still get an insulated Appaloosa plus extra stuff. So just good to note that there. And then I have 3 couplet here. I think there's no reason not to spend the extra 20-30 cents for a couple extra copies, especially if you are playing a pendulum focused deck. I think it's good to have the extra 2 for scales. If you're not playing a pendulum focused deck, then you could just get away with 1. I think that's perfectly fine as well. And then just 1 concerto for the extra fusion. So that's really all you need for the main deck. For the extra deck, I think it depends on what you want to do. You can adjust this accordingly. Some decks, again, if you're not playing the full double fusion odd eyes route, which if you're doing that, you do need 2 Baka, the 1 Absolute Dragon, and the 1 Vortex Dragon. I will get to cost in a little bit and after that. And if you're not doing that, then you just need 1 Baka and 1 Schuberta, and you can forego a couple odd eyes monsters if you're not going that route. But either way, I think it's worth to still pick up all of this. So 2 Baka, 1 Schuberta. Gravity Controller is very important if your deck can afford the extra slot in the extra deck. Basically, you just summon this to the EMZ, and then if they have an interruption, you can link this off into Gravity Controller, get the Reborn effect, and still be able to continue playing, which is really, really important because at that point, Refrain hasn't used its effect to go ahead and add a couplet, and then couplet would get a second Refrain, and then you could at least go straight into a rank 4, like, say, Baguska, Infernal Flame Banshee, Dweller, any of the stuff I mentioned up here that I will get to in a minute. For the other cards, 1 Beyond the Pendulum, 1 Exceed the Pendulum. Again, if you're not doing the double fusion route and all this stuff for the Odd Eyes thing, I think you can get away with just Exceed the Pendulum. This is a super from Age of Overlord, I believe, fairly recent. And this Beyond the Pendulum has had a reprint or 2, so it's only maybe $2 at most for even the secret. So that's something to be fine with. If you're, again, getting the full engine, pay the extra $10 and get the couple extra pieces that are lying around. And then 1 Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. This is something you make as a generic rank 7 with both Bakas. And then when you get rid of it, you can chain block this guy summoning out the Odd Eyes Vortex from your extra deck from Odd Eyes Absolute's effect. And then the last couple honorable mentions is this deck typically most of the time makes an Appaloosa insulated by either a Link 2 of your choice or a rank 4 of your choice. So I threw a couple here. Baguska is pretty nasty right now against both Tenpai and Snake Eye, turning off quite a bit of the deck. If you are playing Snake Eye, obviously Infernal Flame Banshee is a card you can use to get to Poplar and then full combo. If not, Nemesis Flag and Escatos and Protos are also really, really insane. Dweller is a generic Floodgate, and then Gallant Granite is something I threw in just as a card that can search Nibiru. So the question then you have is how much does all of this price out to be? I typically, for myself, look at TCG Market, so I'm not counting the 4 in the side here. So again, I'll just highlight them before I get rid of them. Baguska, Flame Banshee, Dweller, and Gallant. So those 4 are not here. And then we'll go ahead and add a couple copies of couplet up here, just so you can understand. This whole image here is the entire thing that I'm pricing out. That looks to be about, rounding up, $37, which is very reasonable. If you don't have at least an Appaloosa, that might be an extra few bucks. I'm not sure how much those are right now. If you're wondering where the bulk of the price comes from, since most of these cards are commons and or rares, Ostinados are anywhere from 5 to 7, depending on where you can find them. And then Schuberta is like pushing from like $8 to $10 now because it's just an old rare that doesn't have other printings. And then this guy here, the Odd Eyes, is about 5 to $7 as well. So you're looking at, like, say, rounding down 20, 25, $35, and then the rest are a couple cents here and there that get you up to that $37, $38 mark. So not bad by any means. This is, I think what, back in the day, a single write was like 50 when it was expensive. Now you're getting an engine that does way more than that for less than the cost of like that, like is insane. Now with structured X being a little bit expensive, like this is basically close to the cost of 3 structured X plus tax nowadays. I don't even want to get into how much the cost of a box of Rarity Collection 2 is now compared to an engine like this. So, like I said, for the amount you're getting, cost-wise to what you're spending and how much you get out of this engine, it's really powerful. So if you have the 30 to 40 bucks lying around, depending on who can give you some good deals, maybe you find some stuff in bulk that gives you a couple bucks off, I would definitely go for this engine. I think it's really, really powerful. If you really want to save $10, you could cut Schuberta and just play a second Baca, but not, and just use it as link fodder. Like, you don't just have to leave it up there. So if you really want to save 10 bucks, you can just play another Melodious Fusion that doesn't do anything. This is just DD Crow for 3. Not bad, doesn't always come up, but the point is during the combos, you just need a second Melodious Fusion to go into. If you hard open Atinado, that's one fusion, and then Concerto is a second one. So worst case, if you want to wait and don't get this yet and save the 10 bucks, just get a second one, build the standard Apo board plus whatever else, and don't worry about it. You can still make it work. So that's it for the engine, the cost, the breakdown of, what it looks like for depending on how you want to play it. I'm going to go ahead and showcase a few combos with it now. Okay, that's pretty good. It's a lot better than what I thought. Okay, so I'm going to try to showcase a couple things here. I'm going to do the 2 basic 1-card combos, one with Atinado and one with Refrain, demonstrating the end board you can make with different options along the way. And then also in each combo, I'll try to showcase kind of the revised version of where the most common place you're going to get interrupt is. And then if you do, what can you do about it? So I'm just going to start with Atinado. Again, we're assuming for the sake of this, I can put these here. We do have 4 other blanks in hand for both combos, so we'll just leave that there. Starting off, we'll use Atinado. And specifically here, we're going to dump 2 Refrain from our deck to the grave, and then we're going to special summon the Baca in the extra monster zone specifically. I know it's not quite perfect there. I can probably give just a hair more room. There we go. So the Baca has to go here in case they interrupt, and then that's where Gravity Controller comes into play. And if it doesn't get interrupted, it will not matter. You can just continue playing. So Baca's effect on summon gets you a Melodious monster from your deck to the field, so it's just E-Telly. So you'll go ahead, summon a Refrain. Refrain's effect on summon lets you add a Melodious monster from deck to hand, so you're going to get Couplet. Couplet kind of acts like Poplar, but not really. So if it gets added from deck to hand, you can reveal it and then special any Melodious from either hand or grave that is not itself. So you just get a second Refrain back from your grave. This stays in your hand for after that, and then what you can do is you can scale it, use its effect to go ahead and search a copy of the fusion spell Concerto. From there, you have a few different options. I typically will just go ahead and do Concerto. We will go ahead and get rid of both Couplet and Refrain to summon a second copy of Baca. This is the line where you can use the Odd Eyes stuff. So we'll go ahead and make that. And then you have a couple chain links that will happen specifically. Your scales are chain links 1 and 2. They both scale themselves when they're used for the fusion material. So now you have a set of free scales, but again, you can only pen summon light monsters. That's just something to be aware of. That restriction cannot be negated. It's written on Couplet. From here, there's a couple different things you can do. The one I like to do the most first, it just truly depends on your hand, but most of the time, you're going to overlay both straight into Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. The Baca Reborn effect is if it goes to grave in any way, similar to Rescue Ace Preventer. So from here, what you can go ahead and do is link these 2 off. The Refrain will go to the top of the extra deck, and then all these will go to the graveyard. And then you can make whatever you want here. If you don't want to worry about the restriction for Beyond the Pendulum and getting locked out, you could make IP Masquerena. But if you're not worried about that, you could just go for Beyond the Pendulum. So I'll showcase that first. And the cool thing about this is this alone gives you like I'll over exaggerate, like a bunch of chain links you can use. So chain link 1 is beyond. You would pay 1200 to search any pendulum monster. This is where in the one situation having an extra couplet would come into play, because if you play the minimal engine, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, all pendulum monsters are used. So you have no targets for this, which really does suck. So in a non-pendulum based deck where you're just doing the engine, and for the sake of this example, I'm just going to do IP. And if you like don't want to do IP, you can make a charmer, make something generic, whatever it might be. But the point is just making a link to, or if you really want to save IP, we can also just use this and not use the effect. So I'll just do that too as an example. So just so you know, you have either option. So you're going to use this if you have a target. If you don't, the rest of your chain links are going to be Baka to Reborn, Odd Eyes to Special, and Concerto to Draw. You can build those however you want to chain block. Concerto is just if a Melodious Fusion goes to grave, it puts itself on the bottom of the deck, and then you draw a free card. So now you're already at a 5-card hand. You've already paid for itself. Baka is going to let you Reborn. So we'll get Refrain, and then the Odd Eyes effect will trigger, and you'll go ahead and get the absolute here. Let me clean up my zones a little bit just because graves are fanned. I want to make sure that the pen zones are free under here. So if you use this effect, know that the restriction then prevents you from using monster effects until you pendulum summon. So the bad thing about this is this negate can't be used until you pen summon. So if they're catching on to what you're doing and you use this effect, they're just going to nib you. But if you want a generic link 2 to go into just to climb for climbing's sake, use this, don't make the effect, and the negate is live. So from there, you can go ahead and link these two off. Refrain again goes back to the pen, or the extra deck, sorry. And then you can make Exceed the Pendulum. Exceed the Pendulum's effect will activate, letting you add any pendulum from the extra deck face up back to your hand. And then it has another effect where it can spit one out. And then you go ahead, again, link these two off. Refrain again goes back to the extra deck. You make Apollosa. Apollosa is a Apo for 2 in this case. So now you've not normal summoned. You still have 5 cards in hand. You have a 2 negate Apo and a free Omni. Just to note that if you are going to pen summon, you can accidentally turn this off depending on what you do with these. So I'll just showcase that, but you can pen summon. And then from here, if you want to leave this negate live, I recommend linking these two off into a card like IP Masquerena. Or if you don't care about this and just want the body there and prefer to have a more like higher impact card, then you could just go Baguska instead. Just know that this is now turned off. So whichever route you want to go, I think IP is usually the safest route. And that because then the refrains both still go back in the pens and the extra deck. I keep saying I want to say the pen scale. So then on the following turn, if this isn't enough, you still have a free pen summon for 2 more bodies to keep going. So that's all off 1 card. That's just off Atinado. You get a free Omni, an IP into SP, so that's 2 interrupts there, plus 2 for Apo. So 2, 3, 4, 5 interrupts, plus 5 cards in hand, and no normal summon. So that's the first example. What I'm going to do is for this combo, I'm going to rewind to the point where they're going to most likely interrupt you and then demonstrate what you can do from there. Okay, had to pause briefly there. Camera was low battery, had to recharge, but yeah. So I'm going to showcase the same version of the combo with Atinado at the place where you're going to most typically get interrupted, and then how you can at least somewhat play around it. I don't think there's going to be more than one spot. There really is just one spot. I could maybe talk about others, but you're going to still start with Atinado. We're going to ignore the fact of Ash, I guess, because if they have Ash, they really should be doing it here. And if you do that, there's nothing you can do. You just need a secondary starter, like an extra refrain to normal and play. But if for some reason they do allow this to go through, you still dump the 2 and make Baka just the same in the extra monster zone by dumping the 2 refrain from deck to grave. So how Baka reads is its effect can't be negated. The 1/2 E-Telly, and basically that means that Ash will not work because it negates that effect. However, Imperm, Mourner, Veiler, all of those work because it negates its effects, plural, meaning the card as a whole. So you can, like Imperm, Veiler, Mourner this, And that's what's most likely going to happen is if they don't have the ash for this, they're going to try to imperm this, only because not everyone does play Gravity Controller. If you summon this in the EMZ, it can be a giveaway to that, but in my opinion, you should just always be summoning this in the EMZ anyway, even if you're going to link it off, because either way, that still threatens the potential of Gravity Controller. So you'll link it off, say we get impermed. From here, what you do is you do still link it off into a copy of Gravity Controller. And then reminder, Gravity Controller cannot be used as link material either at all or the turn it's summoned. I'm not sure which, but the point is you can't use it this turn. Baka still triggers to reborn the Refrain, and then Refrain's effect will still trigger to go ahead and get you a couplet. Couplet's effect, when it's added, will go ahead and let you add another, I keep saying the same word, special summon a Melodious from hand or grave to the field. So you can bring back a secondary Refrain. The only problem here is, since Gravity Controller can't be linked away, the only way you can use Couplet to search Concerto is if you have either no monsters on field, meaning you're just scaling Couplet, or you only have Melodious monsters on the field. That's how it works. So because we have a non-Melodious thing, we cannot search. So you can either keep this in hand, use it for something else, but most of the time here, in this case, you can still at least get to 2 bodies and then link away into either an IP, like I mentioned before. Go ahead and throw that here, or any link 2 of choice. Or if you don't want to go that route, again, you could make a rank 4 of choice, which is why this is still really good in Snake Eye, because you could do Baguska, or again, even though it's not ideal, you can make Flame Banshee to get Poplar or Ash in this case because you've not used your normal summon. So that's kind of the basic way you can play through a hand trap or a major stop or choke point on Baka, is you make Gravity Controller and then get either a link 2 or just a rank 4 of your choice. And just keep playing as best you can from there. Still decent because you're getting a lot without using a normal summon, again, off of 1 card. So that's the Atinado combo. I'm going to go ahead and showcase the Refrain combo. Okay, so similar to before, we have our, again, 4 cards in hand plus the 1 Refrain. The only difference between this and Atinado is the line's going to look slightly different, as well as this will require your normal summon. So you'll go ahead and normal Refrain, use Refrain's effect, you'll go ahead and get Couplet. You're not going to use the special summon effect of Couplet just because you have no valid targets. From there, what you'll do is scale the Couplet and use the effect to go ahead and add Concerto. From there, you can use the Concerto, getting rid of both of these guys. They'll go in the extra deck, Concerto will go in the grave, and again, you'll lead with Baka, same as normal. From there, you have a few chain links. You can do this as 1, 2, and 3, however you want to build it. If you would think they might have Ash and they haven't done it yet, you could just do 1, 2, and 3 to see if you could bait an Ash, since Ash doesn't work on that, like we talked about in the Atinado line. But either way, you're going to do that. Get these 2, and then Baka will trigger to go ahead and summon a Refrain from deck. Now, Refrain has a scale effect where I believe you boost one of the Melodious fusions and then you can dump a Melodious. So from here, you're going to use the Refrain in scale to dump another Refrain from deck to grave. That's how, when you lead with Refrain, you can still get all 3 into rotation, unlike Atinado, where you dump 2 and then special 1. Here, you're searching 1 and dumping 1. That's kind of how you get the extra 2 in rotation. So you can do a couple things from here. You could go beyond the pendulum again, or you could go IP. Either way is pretty much fine, but we'll go ahead, link these 2 off. This will go in the extra deck. This will go in the grave. But again, you're in the same situation as before. You can do IP or you can do beyond. If you are not playing, again, a pendulum-based deck, that means you have no valid targets left for beyond, so you could just make this as a body 2 link climb and save the IP for later, which I will just go ahead and do for the sake of this example. So then you have a couple triggers. You can do Baka as 1 to, again, reborn the Refrain, and then Concerto as 2 because Baka went to the grave. Put it on the bottom, and then you still get your free draw. Not sure if I mentioned that in the other Atinado combo or the interrupted version of the Atinado combo, but you still get the draw there as well. So then Baka will go ahead and reborn the other Refrain, and then from here you can link these 2 off. This will go to grave, this will go to extra deck, and then you can make, again, the Exceed the Pendulum. And then Exceed the Pendulum effect allows you to add 1 back from extra deck, and then can special 1 for free. And then again, linking again, putting this back in the extra monster zone, this back in the grave, and then you can go ahead and make, again, another 2 material Appaloosa. and then you still have the ability to pen summon 2 refrains, I guess correctly under the link arrows, since they're coming from the extra deck and how this case works. From there, again, you have the same options as before. You can either overlay these 2 into a rank 4 of choice, Baguska, Flame Banshee, whatever, or link into IP. So basically with Refrain, you still have the exact same options. Okay, and then move this here. Again, the only other thing I'll note is when you're interrupted here, there's not really as much ways to really play around it, unfortunately. I'll show you the choke points, I think, just for holistic sake. But again, the line's going to be very similar. You're going to normal, search couplet, scale couplet, get concerto, and then from there, you'll go ahead, use the concerto, fusing these 2. Sorry, I'm bumping stuff. They go in scale. You get a copy of Baka. And then Baka is going to let you search. And again, they're going to imperm that most likely. You use Refrain to dump another Refrain. And then from here, what you can do, again, you're kind of hard stuck. It really just does depend on what you draw if they hit the Baka, because you can make a card like Gravity Controller and then go ahead and get the Reborn and the draw. So Reborn comes back, Concerto goes back, gets you another draw. The problem is in this situation, Gravity Controller can't be used as link material. So you had a little bit of free play in the last one with extra bodies. Here you do not. You can't link these 2 into anything. And you don't have anything in your hand, well, at least that we know of, given their unknowns, or left in extra deck that you can pen summon. So you are kind of hard stuck. Making Gravity Controller gets you like a couple spare bodies and a draw. So like that's kind of the best way you can do it. But Atinado is really the one that lets you play around stuff the most. So I just wanted to go ahead and at least call that out, is that there's not really a clean way to play around it with Refrain, where you could easily just go in the Beyond the Pendulum. And reminder that, again, you can't pen summon except for lights. So if you have any other extra light in your hand between the scales of 1 and 9, you can summon it, link these 2 away, and then you could go into Beyond the Pendulum, search the 3rd Refrain, make Exceed the Pendulum, right, and keep going and make Appaloosa and do all that stuff from there. Like, you have some more room to play if you have an extra light in your hand. That's why the Melodious version is good, and all the other decks that, or sorry, not Melodious version, pure Melodious, as well as Voiceless Voice is good because they have lights you can utilize. Even Chimera, being Mere Sword Knight, being a light you can use as well. So that is the guide to the Melodious engine. A bit of examples of how you can use the combos, what the price looks like, what the engine looks like. I hope this was helpful. If you like these types of styles of videos for certain engines that have gained a lot of traction, I'll do them every now and then, but I really just wanted to highlight this also for myself, kind of as a, you know, idea log to really capture kind of what this looks like. This could change over time depending on how new support and things like that we get, but yeah, that's it for this, and I'll see you guys next week, and I'll see you guys at YCS Indy. Later.